Good evening. We are all entitled to a long weekend every now and then, but a lot of schools shut down across the country today because of staff shortages, and that's the pulse of America tonight. From Seattle to Denver, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and elsewhere, school districts canceled classes after so many teachers put in for the day off. They couldn't fill all of the spots with substitutes. So it was an impromptu 4-day weekend coinciding with Veterans Day. Some call it a sick out. Others say it was a way to protest vaccine mandates. Some of the school districts are describing it as Vaccination Awareness Day. Whatever you want to call it, school is out for tens of thousands of kids today. Their parents left scrambling for childcare. And as we all know, education is in right now as the hot button political issue. It was a major factor in the recent Virginia governor's race. Politico this week even saying it's bigger than the so-called culture wars the extremes of both parties attributed to. They call it a parental revolution and say it's bigger than critical race theory. It comes down to this. During COVID, parents spent a lot of their time with their kids, maybe for better or for worse. By and large, they realized their children are better off in school, in with other kids, than they are remote. And once the fight over getting the kids back in school ended, in some places it took as long as 18 months, well, after that, the fight over masking and other protocols began. So the bottom line is parents want to say in what happens in their kids' schools, whether it's the subjects that are being taught or the rules that are being enforced. And that is our reality. It's also the next potential battleground, vaccinating our kids and whether to mandate it. And that's where we begin tonight with a strong voice on the subject, Arne Duncan, Education Secretary under President Barack Obama. Arne, it's great to have you with us in studio. You know this question's coming. If you were still the Education Secretary, would you recommend a mandate for kids 5 to 11 to get back to school?
Well, thanks so much for having me. And this is not a political issue. This is a medical issue. I think we all, as parents, as educators, as community leaders, we want to keep our kids safe. And as you said, kids have missed so much school, and the impact of them, not just academically, but psychologically, emotionally, being away from their friends for 12, 18 months. Right. Tremendous losses there. So if we know the vaccine is safe, which we do, and there's been 1 million doses, I think, to kids, 5 to 11
the first
now.
Week, yeah.
Already. No issues that we're aware of. If we can keep kids in school learning, if we can keep them and the teachers and the bus drivers and the parents safe, we have every educational, every moral, every medical obligation to do exactly that.
Do we mandate it? That's the question.
I think going forward, we're going to have to move in that direction.
Really?
And where you have kids missing school, where you have kids sick, where you have some kids dying. We've had mandates on vaccines, as you know, tens of millions of kids for decades. Mm-hmm. Polio, mumps, measles, MMR, measles, mumps, rubella. Vaccines in schools are nothing new. It's never been an issue. It's not a medical issue.
It is for a lot of people, though, Arne. And why is it so controversial then?
Well, I think, unfortunately, as we've gotten smarter scientifically, the politics have become more poisonous, more divisive. And this has to be, education has to be the ultimate bipartisan issue. Keeping our kids safe, keeping them healthy, keeping them learning has to be the ultimate, not bipartisan, nonpartisan issue. This is absolutely the right thing to do for children across the country. You probably saw yesterday in Texas where the governor had put in place a prohibition where districts couldn't mandate masks. Right. The court struck that down yesterday because parents sued parents of children with Down syndrome, saying how this made them unbelievably vulnerable. We can't allow that to happen.
Arne, I had someone ask me the other day, since when do I have to co-parent with the government or with a school district? Shouldn't this be my decision? What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say, again, for decades here in the United States of America, you, me, our children, we have all had mandated vaccinations to attend school, and never once was there an outcry about that. Never once, because it was a safe, healthy, sound, medically sound thing to do. That is more true today than ever before. And people use the analogy of a seatbelt. It's actually much more significant than that. With a seatbelt, if I don't wear my seatbelt, I'm just endangering my own life. I'm not endangering yours. If you don't get vaccinated, if you're passing the COVID virus onto someone else, they might get sick, they might die, they might infect someone else. We have a moral obligation not to put our kids in that situation.
Do you think, Arne, that the situation we're in right now, we've already been fighting over masking. You know what's going to happen when this vaccine mandate goes in for students, 5 to 11. There are a lot of people who are iffy on it, and they are pro-vaccine, right? But they're not quite sure about whether it's worth it in their kids, and they want a little more time to discuss. What happens if this goes the way of the mask debate?
Well, I think we need to keep talking to parents, informing them, having an honest conversation. Like you said, we absolutely want parents involved in every part of a child's education. But if this becomes increasingly clear, as I promise you it will, that this is safe, this is effective, this stops people from getting sick. And I just think about how many days have kids missed of school already? Do we want any kid to miss another day of school for any reason?
But are you worried that there's going to be more fallout from all of these parents who, regardless of any of that, are not going to get their kids this shot?
Yeah, again, there may be healthy discussion, debate, whatever, but you have to do the thing that is right educationally, that's right morally, and that's right medically. And I think the evidence, the facts are unequivocal here.
Let's talk about how education's become this new hot button issue politically. We saw what happened in Virginia. It was a key component in the governor's race. We also saw what happened in Loudoun County, where parents are going to these school board meetings. Are you worried that this new issue is going to spread like this and these protests that we have seen across the country?
Well, it's complicated. Like I said, I really want parental engagement, parental involvement. When I was running the Chicago public schools here for 7.5 years in D.C., the more parents are engaged and active, that's good. What I think we have to figure out is what we can do together. And the former governor of Mississippi, Governor Bryant, and I wrote a recent op-ed together. He's a he's a conservative, Republican. I'm a Democrat. And we just talked about what are things we can agree on. We can agree on high-quality education, how game-changing that is. We can agree on high standards. We can agree on supporting infrastructure in schools. We can agree on accountability and transparency. And there's so much that we can agree on. I think if we execute on those things, a lot of the noise, a lot of divisiveness will go away.
Do you agree or disagree that if mandates become an issue for kids, this is going to become very chaotic?
I hope not. I hope not. Now, maybe
I fear it is, though.
I share your fears, and I don't want to be naive here, but we have to follow the science. We have to educate. We have to inform. We have to bring parents along, share the research, share everything. But we have to do the right thing. And there's not a child in school today, millions of children who did not receive the MMR vaccines. Right. This has been happening forever.
Arne, every time I get together with you, I love to talk about what you're doing right now, which is so important. You've come back home to Chicago, and you're trying to address the issue of gun violence. You have an amazing organization called Chicago Cred that's doing great things. Big picture this for me, though, and for our viewers, Arne. They might, from the outside, look in and say Chicago is absolutely on fire and a mess. What do they not understand about what's happening here with crime?
So violence here is at an unacceptable level. It is heartbreaking. It is tragic. It is devastating. That's our reality. Having said that, I'm also extraordinarily hopeful because I get the privilege every day of working with young men and women on the South and West sides who have been caught in these cycles of violence, who are putting down the guns and moving in a very different direction because they have amazing life coaches, because they're getting clinical support to help them heal from their trauma. They're getting their high school diplomas. They're going on to employment. We have 40 employees that are hiring across the country. So I know what's possible in a really dark time. We have to keep scaling and keep working with more young men and women.
One thing you've learned through all of this work that surprised you and that people don't understand. One thing stands out to me, and that is that a lot of people think these people are making tons of money. The gangbangers, whatever. That wasn't the case. Is that what you would point to?
There's so many myths, but yes, I would start right there that no one is winning now, Joe. No one is winning. They're risking their lives. They're getting shot. The police are chasing them, and they're making often less than minimum wage every single day. If we offer them a chance to make good money in the legal economy, 99% of folks are going to take that.
You're doing great work, Arne, and it's great to see you in person. It's great to have you in studio with us. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks so much for the conversation.
All right, you bet. We have some breaking news now. To Washington we go, where prosecutors have charged former Trump strategist Steve Bannon with criminal contempt of Congress. He defied a subpoena from the committee currently investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Let's bring in NewsNation's Evan Lambert now with more on exactly what happened today. Evan?
Joe, Bannon is facing 2 contempt of Congress charges. This all developed really in the last several hours. That federal grand jury indicting Bannon, of course, the former chief strategist to former President Trump. And the Justice Department really says that this all stems from him ignoring a subpoena from the House Select Committee that's investigating that attack on the Capitol on January 6th. We know that one of the counts here is for not showing up for a deposition in front of the committee. The other is for not submitting documents that the committee had asked for. These are misdemeanor charges, and if convicted here, Bannon could face on each one a minimum of 30 days in prison, up to a year in prison on each of those. And the Select Committee here putting out a statement in reaction to these charges from the Justice Department tonight, saying this shows that no one is above the law. Joe?
Evan Lambert, live for us in D.C. Thanks for the update tonight, Evan. The Rittenhouse trial gripped the nation this week, punctuated by Rittenhouse himself taking the stand and breaking down. The case will be in the hands of the jury on Monday, and there are questions tonight about the prosecution's performance. Up next, Trent Copeland, one of the top legal voices in America. He has successfully represented Justin Bieber, Matt LeBlanc, and Shannon Doherty, among many others. He's here, and he'll weigh in. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media at The Donlon Report on Twitter. Yesterday, the defense rested its case in the murder trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, setting the stage for closing arguments on Monday in the shootings that left Americans divided over whether he was a patriot taking a stand against lawlessness or a vigilante. Been a wild week in that Kenosha, Wisconsin courtroom, from Rittenhouse's own breakdown on the stand to the judge's controversial behavior. Here's a look back.
That's right, run.
I didn't do anything wrong. I defended myself.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Oh, I wanted to just observe that it's Veterans Day. And any veterans in the room, on the jury or anywhere else? Oh, Dr. Black is what branch?
Army, sir.
Okay, and I think we give a round of applause to the people who've served our country. I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. Not to be confused, for 400 on the menu, scallops are shellfish, and these are immature or green onions.
That was part of a game of Jeopardy that was played at one point in the courthouse. Joining me now to talk about all of this is Trent Copeland, criminal defense attorney who has represented a number of big names. Trent, it's great to have you. I guess my first question comes from something Jonathan Turley wrote about our divide on this. He said, depending on the media you're watching, it's either the product of systemic errors or systemic racism. Which is it, do you think?
Well, you know, look, I know Jonathan Turley. He's a law professor at the law school I attended. And I think
Georgetown,
he's wrong.
yeah?
I think the truth of the matter is, I think that's right. I think the truth of the matter is that, you know, people look at this through their own prism of experiences. There's no question about that. But I don't think there's any way that we can look at this case generally and not assume that this case has ramifications and political reverberations that relate to other things that have happened in this country in the last year or so. I mean, the truth of the matter is, people look at this case and they view this case because of the obvious disparities in outcome. There are people on the one hand who will argue that critical race theory doesn't belong in our classrooms because kids, teenagers aren't equipped to handle it. And it isn't in our classrooms. But these are also the same people who will say that a 17-year-old has the right to carry an assault rifle, to go into a town that he's not from, to walk throughout the cities of that town, to walk throughout the streets of that city, and to engage in his own brand of vigilantism. These are also the same people who will also say, on the one hand, that three men can chase Ahmaud Arbery, a similar trial, a trial going on simultaneous to this trial, can chase Ahmaud Arbery through their town, through their city, through their community, because they suspect him to be a burglar, because they want to take back their city. And these are the same people who will also say that patriots can go into the Capitol on January 6th because they disagree with the results of an election and take back their country. This is what this is. This is what this is. This is not a function of just an isolated incident. This case has to be viewed against the backdrop of what's happening in our country generally.
You know, this leads to a question, Trent, perfectly, because you mentioned him going through the streets at the age of 17 with a gun. This was a gun he should not have had. He was not supposed to have. And this is probably, it could be the one thing he does get convicted of. But my question is, how do you get past that? Is this a question of, is he defending himself when he was carrying a weapon he shouldn't have had?
You know, look, that's $1 million question. You know, it's no different than what happens. Do you walk into a situation, a confrontation? Do you make that confrontation exist by virtue of walking into it with a weapon? And then do you then get the results of, you know, whatever comes of it? You know, you create the situation.
Right.
It's as if an arsonist walks in and he burns a building down. Does he get to claim any level of self-defense because the person whose building is being burned wants to come out and defend themselves? That's what this is. You don't get an opportunity to walk into a situation that you've created. You've inflamed the situation. There are people out there who saw Kyle Rittenhouse with a weapon in a hostile environment. There's no question about that. But they also saw Kyle Rittenhouse shoot someone. And in the process of shooting someone, they then became agitated and went after him. Do you get the benefit of saying you've engaged in self-defense for a situation and a circumstance
that's perfect,
that you've
Trent.
created?
Right. It gets me to another comparison. If this were a school shooter who shot someone and then people tried to chase that school shooter down to neutralize the threat, and the shooter then shot them, I would imagine it'd be what's different here?
There is nothing different here other than, and again, this takes us back to the initial part of this conversation, what's different is this is a young white guy. This is a young white kid who by all appearances looks like an all-American guy, right? He's who we'd want our next door neighbor to be if we didn't know that he was carrying an assault-style rifle and that he was walking in the streets as a vigilante. This is what makes this different, because you can imagine, and many people across the breadth of this country can imagine, if this was an African-American man, if this was a man of color, if this was anyone else who was walking through those streets carrying an assault-style rifle, the outcome would have been different, and the reaction to what he did would have been markedly different.
Well, what do you think will happen here, Trent? Handicap this for us. Closings are on Monday. What happens?
I think you're right. I think you nailed it at the top of this. I think he'll likely be convicted of the lesser included offenses of misdemeanors. I think the prosecution will be lucky if he gets a misdemeanor. I certainly don't see any conceivable way, based on how this case went in, based on the behavior of the judge, Judge Schroeder, I don't see any conceivable way that he'll be found guilty. And so I think if there's a misdemeanor conviction for illegal carrying of a weapon, I think the prosecution will be lucky. But I don't think that Kyle Rittenhouse will be going to prison based on this.
Right. All right, Trent. One more thing I want to get you on. John Gruden today, the former coach of the Raiders, suing the NFL and Commissioner Goodell, claiming the league used a malicious and orchestrated campaign to end his career. Where are you on this? What do we need to know?
Right. Rich irony, right? Because while he says in his complaint that the NFL interfered with his contractual relations, interfered with his ability to make money, this is the same person who said that a woman shouldn't be a referee. This is the same guy who criticized an NFL coach for bringing in homosexual football players. This is the same guy who criticized the NFL Players Association's leader for having large lips, and he's African American. This is the same guy who's claiming that somehow or another the NFL has interfered with his ability to make a living. It's rich irony.
It doesn't go anywhere then, you don't think, huh?
Look, I think you can file a lawsuit. That doesn't mean you'll win it.
Yeah.
I think this case will move through the court system, but I don't think he has any chance of winning. No.
All right, Attorney Trent Copeland, it's great to have you with us tonight. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Jen Psaki today said inflation has become political. Whose fault is that? And when hasn't Americans paying more money for everyday things not been a political issue? We'll talk about that ahead. And another political issue, President Biden's vaccine mandate, up next. We're going to talk to one of the small business owners who's leading the legal fight. Back after this.
As of November 10th, all U.S. citizens who have requested assistance from the United States government to depart Afghanistan and who we've identified as prepared to depart and having the necessary travel documents have been offered an opportunity to do so.
That was Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Qatar today, discussing Americans still in Afghanistan. All U.S. citizens who requested assistance from the government to leave the country, around 100 people, according to the State Department, have been given an opportunity to do so. The State Department added there are a couple hundred other U.S. citizens in Afghanistan that aren't ready or don't want to leave the country. For more on this now, joined now by former White House counsel and the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute. You know him as a regular. We get to see him in studio tonight. Happens to be in Chicago. We're glad to have Jamil Jaffer with us. What do you make of this, Jamil? I mean, do you think he was very careful, it seemed like, on his wording there? Do you think we have everyone out who wanted to get out? We've offered everyone the opportunity. Are there more there who want to get out? What do we make of this?
Yeah, I think there are. One of the challenges is a lot of these American citizens who are there have families that are Afghan, right, and who can't leave because they don't have Afghan passports. They were taken by the Taliban or the like. So saying they don't want to leave, I think, is not really a factual statement. There are Americans who want to leave, but they want to leave with their families. And so just saying they've been offered the opportunity, they've also been offered the opportunity to leave out of Kabul at the airport there. And that means running the Taliban gauntlet.
Sure. A
lot of Americans aren't going to want to do that, particularly after the way they were treated back when the evacuation happened.
Right. Certainly not the case with our allies, though, Jamil. I mean, we talked with Scott Mann on our broadcast last night. He's still on a mission that continues to this day, trying to get more of our Afghan allies out. He's asking the president to help with that as well. He wrote him a letter. Here's a bit of what he told us last night.
Well, imagine a 911 dispatcher, Joe, being on an 85-day 911 call. But before they pick up the phone, the supervisor says, hey, we're not sending anybody to the address, so just do the best you can and keep their hopes up. That's exactly what our veterans have been doing since Afghanistan fell.
And the honest truth is, Jamil, this has really kind of fallen off of the headlines since we've been gone now for, 72 days. Is there a disconnect here, do you think? And if so, what is it?
I think there is a significant disconnect. You have all these U.S. service members who made commitments to these Afghan allies that we're going to take care of you when this thing is over. You're not going to be left in the hands of the Taliban or any of these terrorist groups. And yet here they are, 25,000, 30,000 people who helped us, who were interpreters, fought alongside us, rule of law advocates, lawyers, and the like. And they've been left to the deprivations of the Taliban. And so we owe those people a real debt. And so the fact that they're not being taken care of is a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about this gauntlet that Americans are trying to run to get to the Kabul airport. I can only imagine what it would be like for these Afghan allies. So we learned today, Jamil, that President Biden is going to meet with China's President Xi on Monday in a virtual call. These have not gone well in the past. There's a lot to talk about. What do you expect?
Well, look, I think they're obviously going to talk about trade, and the president's going to pressure Xi to live up to the commitments he made to President Trump about buying American goods. Cybersecurity likely to come up. The Chinese continuously hacking us, stealing intellectual property. And then, of course, the issue of Taiwan. Will the president raise that? And how tough will he be on that, right? Are we willing to go to bat for Taiwan? The president's been saying the right things, right? Does Xi believe it? Because they've been acting in very dangerous ways around that.
Do we find out what happens and how this call goes, or will each side sort of posture?
Well, typically what happens is the White House will release sort of a readout of the call. I mean, this was the readout that became famous during the Ukrainian call that President Trump had. But we'll see. We'll see what the White House says.
All right, let's talk about quickly this last situation before we let you go in Yemen, where a number of embassy employees there were security, right, at the old U.S. embassy have now been detained.
That's right.
Tell us what's happening.
So, we evacuated the U.S. embassy because of the dangerous situation between the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels and the Saudis who were fighting them and the Yemeni government forces that we backed. There was a dangerous situation. We left in 2015. We've had local employees there, though, guarding that facility as well as working in that facility. And the security guards have now been detained by these Houthi rebels. And that's a real problem because these are American U.S. government paid employees. They may be local Yemenis, but they're paid by us.
You think this demands serious action?
Well, I think it does. I mean, you can't have what amounts to a group that was a terrorist group until just a few months ago. The Biden administration removed them from the terrorist list in February. But this is a terrorist group that now has a hold of our people that we're paying. They may be Yemeni citizens again, but they're American paid employees.
All right. White House counsel and the founder and executive director of the National Security Institute, Jamil Jaffer, it's good to see you again. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me.
Breaking news now, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals just ruled to uphold the temporary stay on President Biden's vaccine mandate on businesses. The businesses suing to stop that mandate are claiming it causes, as they put it, irreparable harm. The lawsuit says that businesses would lose employees, incur unrecoverable compliance costs, and face deteriorating questions in already fragile supply chains and labor markets. Joining me now, one of those business owners suing to stop the OSHA mandate. Great to have Brandon Trosclair with us. He owns 15 supermarkets in Louisiana and Mississippi. So, Brandon, it's great to have you with us. I guess my question is, did you figure somebody's going to challenge this thing? It might as well be me.
Well, thanks for having me, Joe. Look, man, I honestly expected to be one of thousands upon thousands of people challenging this mandate. And, to be out front and with the media attention and everything else was certainly unexpected. But hey, I'm proud to stand my ground and stand up for my businesses and my staff.
Why did you do it, Brandon? Are you not wanting to force this decision on your workers? Are you worried about how many of them might quit? Why did you do it?
Yeah, I've done this, Joe, because I believe it's a massive overreach of the federal government. This is obviously extends from the boundaries of OSHA. And, for whatever reason, I have employees that don't want to take this vaccine. And it's not for me to get involved in that decision. It's not for the federal government to get involved with their personal medical decisions. And so that's why I've brought this fight.
I've said this before on the program, Brandon. I work in a newsroom full of people. I don't know who's vaccinated and who isn't. I am, so I'm not really that worried about it. I walk through an airport. I don't know who's vaccinated and who isn't. A year ago, your workers were heroes. No one cared if they were vaccinated then. What's different now? What's changed?
Look, I think there's some people out there playing politics, and that's unfortunate. But yeah, I didn't know who's on my staff is vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. It's none of my business up until we filed this lawsuit. Is now I'm finding out quite a few people that aren't vaccinated, and some of them are even sharing with me the reasons why. But again, it's none of my business to get involved in their personal medical decisions.
Hey, while we have you, Brandon, we're talking a lot about how our grocery bills are going up. Let's get you a little bit on how that's impacting you and your customers. How much have you had to raise prices?
I don't have a percentage there for you, Joe, but it's massive. We're getting price increases every single day. I got a price increase today on a loaf of bread, just increased 25 cents for a loaf of bread. This isn't the first increase that we've had on bread, but everything's going up. As you all know, all the proteins, your beef and your poultry and everything else is through the roof. And that's a lot to do with transportation and labor shortages.
All right, Brandon Trosclair, hey, it's great to have you, and congratulations on the win, at least in round one. We will all be watching, certainly, to see where that goes, and maybe we'll check back in with you the next time around, huh? Thanks for the time.
Absolutely, thank you.
Now this.
It's become a political cudgel, and it shouldn't be. It's impacting, as you said, millions of Americans, no matter their political party, and that's certainly of concern to the president. And economists across the board also agree that the president's economic agenda, the bipartisan infrastructure bill that he will sign on Monday, and the Build Back Better bill that we are working to move forward, will not add to inflationary pressure.
That's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki today discussing rising costs, also known as inflation, noting that the topic has become a, quote, political cudgel. Psaki went on to say that economists, including former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, are not worried about further rising costs brought on by the multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure and Build Back Better spending packages. But just this week, Summers gave a differing opinion. Let's listen to that.
I think we're speeding down the road at a really rapid rate. It's kind of a downhill road, and it's not going to be so easy to put the brakes on here, and that's why I'm concerned. And I think that the policymakers in Washington, unfortunately, have almost every month been behind the curve. They said it was transitory. It doesn't look so transitory.
So, as you heard, the former Treasury Secretary there a bit more concerned about inflation than the White House Press Secretary indicated today. For more on the impact of rising prices, joined now by Carol Roth. Great to have you back, Carol, author of War on Small Business. So, based on your Twitter feed, I think I know your answer, but who's right here?
Well, I think if we just take a step back and say, how did we get here? Jen Psaki is right in a sense that this is political because inflation is entirely government driven. It's been the 1-2 punch of fiscal and monetary policy. The Federal Reserve has pumped trillions of dollars into the market. We have seen trillions of dollars in stimulus from the government, including another round this past March in terms of that American Rescue Plan. That was almost another $2 trillion at a time when the economy was coming back online and people were getting vaccinated. So we've just had money being thrown, into the system, coupled with the government, turning on and turning back, or turning off and turning back on large swaths of the economy that has disrupted the labor market and the supply chain. So this has all been government driven. And to think that if you throw additional spending on that somehow will curtail inflation, that we never learned that in my economics class.
Well, that's what they're saying.
Joe, I don't know about you.
That's what the administration is saying anyway, that it'll help with inflation. You don't buy that.
I mean, I just fundamentally don't know how it possibly would, with the exception of perhaps that it is so hard to pay for and the tax ramifications are so bad that it slows down the economy and becomes entirely deflationary. But I somehow don't think that's what Jen Psaki was trying to project, and certainly wouldn't be a good outcome either.
Carol, we want to get you on another thing here. More people quitting in September, a record high, 4.4 million, and that's on top of another 4 million who quit in August. I mean, normally this would be considered bullish, I guess, because people feel confident that they're going to find another job or a better paying job. But do you think we can look at this the other way and say that maybe people are quitting because at this point it's just not worth it to work?
Well, this is being called the Great Resignation, and I think the dislocation in the labor market has created tremendous opportunities, probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity if you are a worker. So finally, the playing field has been tilted, whether it was for the right reasons or not, it has been tilted in your favor.
Right.
And you as a worker are going to take advantage of that, and we're going to root for that. We're going to say, go get your cash and do what you can with it. But I think that there are a broader set of issues. I think that you have a lot of boomers who are retiring and not going back to work. We haven't had legal immigrants entering the workforce because of some of these pandemic mandates in the way that we probably need to. And so there is a giant mismatch and just so many 10.4 million jobs in this country left unfilled that I don't think it's a great thing for the economy, and is probably one of the things that's going to be a drag. We're going to hit a wall where we get everybody back in that wants to work. People are moving around, and we're still going to have a big gap, and that's something we're going to have to contend with over the next several years.
Great insight as always from Carol Roth, author, War on Small Business. You'll find her on Twitter. She's a big deal there too. Carol, great to have you. Thanks. Enjoy the weekend. Who doesn't cherish the memories of going to the mall to see Santa when you were a kid, or maybe carrying on the tradition with your own children right now? So, well, your trip may be in jeopardy this year, though. Parents could face long lines to waiting with their kids to sit on the lap of jolly old St. Nick. COVID concerns and the labor shortage have contributed to, well, you guessed it, a Santa shortage. From coast to coast, malls and shopping centers are struggling to entice Santa to come down from the North Pole, or at least his helpers. Some Santas are currently charging between $175 to $300 an hour, depending on where they live and the number of hours for the gig. Here to talk more about this, founder and director of the Professional Santa School, Susan Mesko, and Santa himself. Susan, this is great because we always wonder how to tackle complicated economic issues, and you guys are perfect to explain this. Let's start with the workforce issues. Are you having trouble finding Santas?
No, we have Santas. We've graduated quite a few. We have Santas. We just don't have enough Santas.
Oh, I see.
The Santa School enrollments have gone down due to COVID, and it is in a conference setting, so that makes it a little more difficult to get guys into the programs. So the last 2 years, we've seen a decrease in enrollment at Santa School.
How significant?
Probably a third. So,
wow.
So we have 2/3 of the students that we had, so we're missing a third of the new students. And every year there is some attrition due to Santa's ages and Santa's retiring.
Sure.
So we usually use the Professional Santa Claus School to replenish that workforce.
Santa, are you making a little more money as a result of this economy?
Well, because Santa will be visiting more homes, yes. Santa will be making a little bit more just because there's more people to go visit.
Yeah. So, Susan, are you charging more to provide the Santas for people?
No. I do have people who are very desperate that are calling me up, offering amounts of money that are unheard of, but that wouldn't be ethical. And I don't have Santas to fill those. So we're asking if people would possibly move their events onto weekday mornings, afternoons, or evenings.
Right. Hey, Santa, quickly, how has the experience changed for you since COVID and a lot of people shopping online?
Well, last year, everything was virtual. So that was one big change, obviously, not being able to actually, wave at the children have the,
Hugs.
Right.
The hugs.
Yes.
We miss the hugs.
Boy, we really
you're going to get
miss
them.
the hugs.
You're going to get them
was
this
the
year.
hardest
Hey,
part.
Santa, one other quick question. Just checking. Do you have a name on that on your list there? Leland Vittert?
Well, it's somewhere between the nice and the naughty.
Okay, good.
I'm thinking
He's got to do a little work.
All right, Santa and Susan, it's great to have you. Thank you so much.
That's a good one.
That was a good one. Santa, thanks. Time for tonight's American Snapshot. This is a great one and a phenomenal way to end the week. Teamwork in the New York Police Department, NYPD. It's Officer Shondell expecting to get an award from the police commissioner this week. So this is how it was all going down. But this day went from good to great. Notice behind her there, that's her boyfriend, Henry, a retired sergeant who was about to pull off a proposal with some help. And it's safe to say she was pretty excited. Here's how it went down.
Hold on, we need an answer.
Well, the answer was yes, although I think we already knew that. That's a beautiful picture. In fact, so nice. We made it our American Snapshot tonight. That's our time. Have a good evening and a fantastic weekend. Leland's next with On Balance. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.